Okay. 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 There we go. There we go. There we go. Still there. Still there.
Someone say something?
Okay.
They're not doing it.
Okay, I think it's this Bluetooth speaker.
Okay.
The mic has a mic. Can we try the audio? And just,
Yeah, we'll just have it. Cool, okay. Sorry, people.
it was working before. It's super weird.
Can we test it with some?
Oh.
See, we're here now.
That's
I just. Making noise.
You really good?
Got someone to give a test listen to?
Someone say something? I'm saying something. Is it working?
Are you
Is it
saying
good?
something?
Okay, I think we are good.
We're
So
good?
that was the issue? Okay.
Okay.
We're not gonna have her face on?
People who are online will be able to see our face, right?
Yes. Just not in the.
Yeah.
And that's the results tape.
It's super weird that I'm just doing that.
Okay, let's confirm.
It's the stream up right now. Sure.
Not yet, I don't think. Or it is on Zoom, but not on Facebook yet.
Someone talk. Say
Hello?
Sound check.
Check, check.
Check, check.
Gig economy
Check with the bill.
workers.
Can you hear me?
We got no
Yes.
echo.
All right,
So
we're
we
good?
can't show her face. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sandra, you gonna tell me when to go?
Yes, we're good.
All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Gig Economy Speaker Workout, or Speak Out, sorry. My name is Rachel Lauder. I am the Executive Director of Working Washington and the Fair Work Center. We're so excited to have everybody here. Working Washington and the Fair Work Center are two workers' rights organizations merging together to become a one-of-a-kind center for worker organizing, advocacy, outreach education, and legal services. We think this might be one of the first of its kind, a gig economy panel exclusively focused on workers. These gig workers have been meeting for several months to talk about issues in the gig economy and what we can do to fix them. And now they're speaking out about the changes they want to see. So I'm going to introduce everybody. We'll go for a little bit over an hour. Kimberly, our moderator, will ask some questions and we'll take questions from the audience. If you're online watching, you can just type in your questions into the chat. And I'd also ask online viewers right now to type in what they think when they hear the phrase gig economy. So for some intros, Kimberly will be our moderator. As I said, she's been a full-time Lyft driver for more than 3 years, and she's been instrumental in bringing together workers at our meetings. Roy has worked for apps including Amazon Flex, Uber, and Lyft. He has a full-time job as a software test engineer and started working for Amazon Flex in 2016. He's been involved in our gig worker campaign meetings from the beginning and has helped shape what the group is advocating for. Wafula started working for Lyft about 7 months ago when he moved to Seattle to live with his brother. He's been coming to gig worker meetings for several months, and he says he appreciates the flexibility and opportunity offered by Lyft, but wants to see workers getting benefits like healthcare and retirement. Mia is an Instacart shopper, as well as a private pastry chef with her own business, making wedding cakes and other desserts. She wants to see workers getting access to basic rights like workers' comp. Corwin has been working in the gig economy for about 5 years, and his main gig is grocery shopping and delivering with Shipt and Instacart. As a worker who was injured on the job and couldn't access workers' comp, he's a strong advocate for gig workers getting access to benefits. Chris is a former DoorDash delivery driver. He's put a ton of hard work into helping organize gig workers and get the word out about the issues they're facing. Although he left the gig economy recently in favor of more stable employment, he's committed to advocating for gig workers until they win the rights they need. And then finally, Carla is the director of the American Worker Project at the Center for American Progress. She's online, she's not here in the room, where she focuses primarily on improving the economic security of American workers by increasing workers' wages and benefits, promoting workplace protections, and advancing workers' rights at work. She's a frequent commentator on conditions faced by workers in the gig economy and writes on how policymakers can raise standards for these workers. So as I said, go for about an hour, typing questions online. Kimberly will moderate. Please turn off your phones if you're in the room or put them on silent. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you all for being here. I think this is a really important thing that we're doing because we're at the start of a whole new industry emerging. And now is when we need to make sure that certain procedures and policies are in place that are going to protect the worker and make it fun, profitable, and wonderful for everyone. Also online, the people online, if you are a gig worker, could you put in a 1 in the chat? Put in a 2 if you're a customer of these gig apps. And if you're not either of those, but you're just a supporter, then please put in 3 so that we have an idea of who all is watching. Let's start with the first question is what's working? Because we know that there's a lot of reasons that people are moving into the gig economy. Roy?
Yeah.
What do you like about your job or working in the gig economy?
Yeah. As mentioned earlier, yeah, I do like Amazon Flex. I've done like Uber and Lyft also. And what I like most about it is that I get to determine my hours. Like when I decide to jump in, like work, Amazon Flex has like there are certain schedules that you kind of fight for. And like for me, it's like an additional side income from my day job. And two additional things I would say is that it definitely is a pre-tax type income, and it's a humbling experience for me being in the gig economy.
Thanks. Wafula, how about you?
Well, thank you.
What is it you like?
I work a lot in different companies in here, but since I started working in Lyft, I feel more flexibility and more changes in myself. Like I feel more freedom, and having freedom is based on what I see in working as a gig economy and working for Lyft. Anytime I can work, anytime I can determine my hours, I can manage my hours, and that's what I discuss with my friends. They all say to me, and I believe to this also, that we can make our own exact schedule. We don't have any exact schedule that we should come in this time and we should go in this time and these stuffs, and that's a kind of full freedom for us. And that's what I really like it. And Also, yeah, also it has more flexibility for me that I feel good. And I can recommend my friends in here, and I recommended a lot of my friends when they knew that it has like this freedom that you can determine your hours and you can manage your hours and you can work anytime and you're free. And they really like this, and they're all member of gig workers.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. Chris, how about you? What do you like about your gig economy work?
I like the fact that you can be your own boss, that you can be in charge of yourself. It's definitely, it's humbling to know that, you can, like you said, like what Fila said, you can work whenever you want. So you can log on your app, make extra money. So that's pretty important. And my platform that I work on is I did work for is DoorDash. So.
Kevin, how about you?
So I started with Lyft in Boston when they first kicked off there, which I think was in 2014. Shortly after that, a car took some damage I couldn't afford to fix, so it wasn't really Lyft certifiable. I ended up picking up with Instacart, and I've been with them pretty solidly since then until recently I switched over to Shipt.
What did you like about your gig work?
I like that I can drive my own car. I like that I can set my own hours. I like the people I deliver to. I like meeting people in different areas. And you don't get a chance to know them the same way you do with Lyft, but oddly, through what they order, you get an idea of who they are, and that's a different kind of knowledge, and it's just as valuable.
Thanks, Darla. Yeah, how about you?
Well, the traditional careers, they don't exist anymore. The careers that our parents had or our grandparents had, where you were with a company for 20 plus years, they're not there anymore. Even in the tech industry, it's strange to hear that somebody's there for even 15 years. In the hospitality industry, you can go from one restaurant to another hotel to another catering spot within a year or 2 years. So to be your own boss when it comes to a gig industry, it's a little bit more reliable, I think.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a more traditional job, or did you have one before you started working in the gig economy? And how's working in the gig economy different?
Actually, there is really no difference because I still do have a traditional job. I am a pastry chef and I've been in the industry for over 25 years. The thing about it is, at this point in time, if I don't have a wedding cake to make, then I don't have work. So there's really no difference.
It seems like your traditional job is like a gig like.
Yes, absolutely. So.
Corwin, how about you? How is working in the gig economy different for you?
Well, I've struggled with traditional jobs being able to keep them for longer than, say, 6 months to 2 years in the past. And it's allowed me, the gig economy has allowed me to keep making money through periods of homelessness. The knife edge here is that I wouldn't have been homeless if I had benefits like I have with a regular job. And the general difference is that they aren't seen by the company that they're working for as worthy of that much support. It's like they see us as disposable, and that has to stop.
That's an old, that's gone on for a long time in various
It's too much too long.
incarnations, yeah.
Yep.
Chris, how about you? How's it different working in the gig economy than in traditional jobs?
Yes, I actually went from the gig economy to getting actually a normal job, an employee job, W-2 job, and actually a Motel 6. So it's been a very different the whole vibe's different. First of all, you have a paycheck you can rely on, you can plan for, because in the gig economy you can't plan for that. There's lots of things that come up to where you don't meet the goal that you're trying to get to. So at least you can budget yourself, and at least I'm able to budget for the next, I can plan for like 2 weeks in advance rather than working in the gig economy. That's not something you can do, fall back on.
Okay. Wafila, how about you?
Thank you. As I mentioned before, that I work in different companies around Seattle. Yeah, I cannot say like the those were bad companies or like this, but I can say like I worked in LSG Skyship's company in the airport. After that, I worked for Amazon, but the only thing that I prefer to work in gig economy is, as I said before, it's the being like flexible for me, and that's the only point I like it. Because when I was in these companies I mentioned, I had good times. Like maybe I had a problem with my shift. That was like a midnight shift, or maybe too early morning, or maybe when I was working with Amazon, that was a kind of physically job, and I was not that much relaxed. What I'm right now working gig economies. For these flexibilities or the reasons that I prefer to work in gig.
You were going to mention something about your package delivery job and how that's different.
Yeah, I said the package delivery job. That was delivering the package, and the package were like that was heavy, and these were the problems, and also I had to go early morning, like 4 o'clock, and I mean that was good for me, but not like I feel free. I feel like flexible, and I feel good myself in working for Lyft. I didn't feel myself like on that job.
Awesome, thanks, Waka. Roy, how about you?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, so I am a W-2 salaried software test engineer. Now we found the big companies locally, and it just I'm sure everybody is aware that like cost of living here in Seattle is like skyrocketing. So, but with that said, yeah, for me the gig economy is different because I feel that it does like tap into existing skills that a lot of us have, like a driver's license, so you can drive, and using an app that I feel is relatively intuitive. But aside from that, something to keep in mind is that for the most part, you're an independent contractor, and so health and or vacation, you're on your own. Basically, you just have to figure that out. And yeah, and aside from that, like what I mentioned earlier, like Seattle is just expensive.
Yep. And you were going to say something about, I think, the benefits between the gig work and full-time? The difference between...
Yeah, so yeah, just I guess like just in general, it definitely taps into a different like skill set compared to like what's required for like a day job like career. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
People talk a lot about flexibility when it comes to working in the gig economy. Just a minute. So we're going to go to Carla? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Okay, Carla is going to give us an overview of the gig economy and what that means.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So the gig economy refers to tech platforms, as everyone's been talking about. It refers to tech platforms that deploy armies of workers to perform services that range from on-demand taxis to home cleaning and maintenance to food delivery. Some industry experts are really predicting that the sector is going to transform the way all Americans work and offer unprecedented levels of freedom and flexibility. Others discount the size and growth of the sector and argue that it's a distraction from issues facing other types of service workers. Yet even the most modest estimates find that the portion of American workers classified as independent contractors are significant. 6% of the American workforce, or some 10 million workers. For comparison's sake, that's the same size as the portion of workers that work in science and technology jobs. And so even if this is the size of the workforce, it's a size that is important, and we should pay attention attention to. Moreover, we frequently see some of the same challenges faced by gig workers being faced by low and middle wage workers throughout our economy. So increasingly, these workers are shouldering uncertainty and risk. Large companies are driving down their costs by shedding their role as an employer, instead relying on staffing agency, franchises, and independent contractors, which is the role that most of these gig workers occupy to supply their workforce. The promise of gig work won't be fulfilled unless policymakers and advocates pay attention to what sorts of jobs are being created and how these jobs support workers in the 21st century economy. So I think a lot of the panelists have hit on the problems that they're facing. But in terms of the way we see it here at CAP, the way we organize it is the following 3 items. 1, gig workers receive few workplace protections and benefits. 2, there's increasing evidence that gig workers are not receiving the pay they need to compensate workers for these costs. And then 3, workers say that they shouldn't have to choose between a flexible job and economic stability. They want and need both in order to support themselves and their families. So let me go in a little bit, drill down a little bit in terms of more detail. So gig workers are typically classified as independent contractors, as I mentioned. This essentially means they're in business for themselves. Lots of the folks on the panel said that that's something they like. And this should give workers more freedom and flexibility to set their own hours, to contract with multiple companies. However, these workers aren't covered by workplace protection laws, nor do they receive benefits. So what does that mean? No minimum wage, few protections from harassment and discrimination, no sick leave, few safety protections, no workers' compensation in the case of injury, no unemployment protections, and no help with retirement and healthcare savings. So in addition, these workers also must shoulder the cost of operating a business. This might mean workspace or insurance or acquiring a vehicle. And to shoulder both these business expenses and the cost of benefits, contractors must be able to negotiate with their clients a pay premium over what would be paid to an employee doing similar work. However, many surveys suggest that too many independent contractors, particularly in the gig economy, are earning low wages. So, for example, a 2016 Pew survey found that gig economy workers were nearly twice as likely to come from low-income households. And a 2018 review that came out just weeks ago from the Economic Policy Institute of Uber found that after accounting for business expenses such as gas and insurance and social security taxes, workers were making just $10.87 per hour on average nationally. That's a number that's lower than both the Washington state and the Seattle minimum wage. So finally, I'd note that gig workers like the flexibility of the gig economy, as you've heard here, but they also say that they need more stability. So a 2015 survey of gig workers found that nearly 3/4 said that they should be given more benefits as part of their job. Moreover, this flexibility and control of gig workers may be limited or overstated since workers' earnings and hours are controlled by when there's sufficient demand. They can't be doing their work if there's not someone demanding that job be done. And a recent report from the New York Times documented how gig companies are using psychological inducements to keep workers driving, to keep them on the road, to keep doing the work. So this flexibility issue is in question. And finally, there is this idea that gig work as a side hustle might be changing. Well, many gig workers are part-time. A new study out of New York City found that city drivers and gig workers were increasingly working full-time. So 60% of ride-hailing drivers in New York City are full-time. And the authors say that those drivers provide 4 out of 5 rides on platforms in the city. So in a nutshell, that's how we see the challenges of the gig economy, that really there's an opportunity for policies makers to address by that would raise standards for all gig workers.
Okay, our third question is, people talk a lot about flexibility when it comes to working in the gig economy. We've all talked a lot about flexibility. Mia, what does that flexibility mean to you?
It means that I'm able to work both my jobs. I'm able to dictate to this job, Instacart, that I'm able to work so many hours due to the fact that gig will come first, so it's easy.
Priorities.
Yes, absolutely.
So thanks. Fafiola, how about you?
Well,
What's that
thank
flexibility
you. As I mentioned before about the flexibilities in this job, freedoms and other things I said. Beside of that, the only point that I like in here, I can say it's a big flexibility for me, is to spend more time with family and friends. Like you have enough time to spend with family, with your friends, go to vacations, yeah, and attend any parties. I mean, like you don't have any exact schedule and in an exact time, then you can determine your time and you can be with your friends. And that's a big flexibility for you.
I think it'll allow you to like show up at things too.
Yeah.
Be a better parent. to your
Exactly.
Children.
Exactly. That's
Roy, how about you? What's the flexibility to you?
Yeah, well, for me in general, so because I do have like my regular day job, something to consider also is that I get to pick and choose certain times of the day, especially outside of my regular day job, on when I decide to pursue the extra stream of income. And to a certain degree, if you actually look at the pattern, sometimes there are like certain times outside of a regular day job that you notice the payout will be a little better. So yeah, you get to choose
those
like when.
games.
Yeah, you get to choose like when it makes sense, or if you just really need like time off, then you're not obligated to do it. Yeah.
And how about you, Chris?
Yes, well, as flexibility is amazing, and it is when you put it towards the work, working, yes. But what people are tending to forget is the balance of your life. So for example, I work this full time. It was a full-time gig for me. And there's a lot of other people that do it full-time. So, I was spending 60 hours a week just trying to make ends meet. And so I didn't have any flexibility on my home life or spending time with my dog, who's my best friend. So I think it's important to think about also the other aspect of it, or the other spectrum on the other side. So yeah, that's pretty much what flexibility means to me.
Thank you. In a single, we'll run this quick, but in a single word or phrase, how would you describe the pay on your app? Roy?
Yeah, I would say low, and I'm thinking in terms of like living standards here, like in Seattle.
Okay. Fabiola?
Yeah, in a short sentence, I want to say mostly good, but it needs some reformation.
Okay. Yeah.
Not adequate.
Precarious.
Precarious.
How about non-transparent?
Non-transparent. Okay, what's the biggest issue that you're personally facing, right, as a gig worker, biggest issue you're facing as a gig worker, a gig economy worker, I guess that's what you said.
Yeah. Well, I guess like for me, the biggest issue is that in general, so keep in mind, this is a pre-tax type income, and in general, it barely enables us to break even, get cost of living here. And another thing that I do notice, and I've heard from other people from like Facebook forums and whatnot, you can easily get deactivated just from like, let's say like 2 errors or 2 mistakes, and then boom, we get the goodbye email.
How do you feel about that? I mean, is there a real fear about deactivation?
For me, it may be a side gig, but I've known of like people who actually do this full time. I mean, they push like 8 hours or more, and this is like their livelihood. And being deactivated abruptly, or maybe even like put on hold temporarily for a good like 48 hours, that could almost be the difference between like getting into debt, like just like that.
Right. Thanks. Fabiola, how about you? What is the biggest issue you're personally facing?
Thank you. I can say I haven't faced much issues and working for that. But one thing I want to say, it's a short story, that sometimes people are deactivating for things that aren't their fault. Like I was accused and hitting passenger with car, but that was not my fault, and that was the issue I faced with that. And I was close because my account was on hold and other staff investigation and these things. But yeah, that was an issue I faced with that, and I had a communication with the company, and exactly I can say that in this point I can say that was not my fault, but I was close to lose my job.
That's what we call deactivation without investigation.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a big fear that a lot of us face.
Yeah, you made it complete.
We're gonna mention something about some of the expenses and. that
Yeah.
too.
Also, like it needs some services, like if they provide like some benefits, like small benefits, big benefits. We're gonna talk about that later, but like car wash, it's also very necessary for the drivers. If they provide this service for them, that would be great.
Well, like you don't get as good a star rating if the
Yeah.
car's not tip top,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So something to help defray those expenses by even handling it.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
just greater base pay so we can handle those expenses.
Exactly.
Yeah, how about you? What big issues are you personally facing?
Well, as a gig worker, I'm not really protected by the state's laws that other workers have here in Washington State. I don't have health care, I don't have time off, I don't have sick leave. I'm not even protected if I get hurt on the job, which a lot of gig workers have gotten. Also, I'm not even protected with unemployment. They will turn around and say, well, you are a, independent contractor. And then on top of that, you're taxed like a corporation. That's not fair. So,
So kind of the worst of both worlds instead of the best.
yes.
Oh, and how about you?
Well, if you're working full-time or more than full-time, you should not be making so little that you can't afford to keep your rent up or put food on your table or clothes on your body.
Yep.
And instead of seeing increases in pay like you do with prolonged employment with other companies or other industries, you start a job, you have starting pay, in a couple of months, maybe you get, 50 cents or $1 more if you're lucky. In the gig economy, it goes the exact opposite direction. They figure the longer you're there, the more they can take you for a sucker, the less they have to pay you.
Now, some would say that that's going into the realm of W-2, not 1099. And there's a lot of people that I've heard from on the boards that are very adamant that they want 1099 status. But taking the same thing that you just said, cost of living, cost of gas, and everything is going up. A regular business would figure that in their pricing structure,
Exactly.
and what they charge would go up, but on these apps, we're not able to adjust what we're charging.
Right.
And so,
And
Go one way or the other.
There's a whole thing about created inflation, which is a whole other issue.
yeah, Chris, how about you? What's the biggest issue you face personally?
Well, there's a number of them, but my biggest of all of them would be basically the fact that, so kind of like what Corwin said too, you get, you're there for a long time and you put your effort in and you put all you can into this job or this gig, and all of a sudden, like you said, you see the decrease in pay over time, and they do it so minute that it becomes it's like you don't notice it until it's until you all of a sudden are getting behind on your bills, and you're not able to, get caught up, and then you end up losing your home. That's my story. That's what happened to me. I couldn't afford rent anymore because the rents are just out the roof right now.
What'd you do?
Unfortunately, I was living in my van, waking up every morning and having to go work about 12 hours a day just to even get ahead, and then putting partially of that back into my car for gas, and then barely making sometimes even $100 in that 12-hour period, sitting for the next paying to come through. It was a really hard time in my life. It's very emotional to talk about.
Thank you. One of the things that people mention a lot about working in the gig economy is that it's unstable. Has there ever been a time in your life where your life changed in unexpected ways because of your gig job?
Well, thank you. About being unstable, I should say that in a short sentence, a small mistake can cause you to lose your job anytime. We all know that nobody is without a mistake. We all have mistakes. But it doesn't mean we have to lose our job. And that's the only point that mostly my friends, mostly people that I'm in touch with them, they think that this is the weird point, and this is the exact point that it makes unstable for the people, express unstable for the people. that they want to come in this job, but they're not sure that they're gonna go on or not, when they're gonna lose their job. What a small mistake. We know most of the people, they're new in Seattle and they don't have exact job. They wanna go and be a member of gig workers, and they wanna work Uber, DoorDash, Lyft, and other stuff. But even they do a small mistake because they're not familiar with the city, they're new. But if even they do a small mistake, they're about to lose their job. They're going on hold and on hold, and then their account is deleted. And that's the point, I think, that it expressed the being unstable of.
There's a definite fear about not knowing.
Yeah, exactly. They don't.
Okay. Oh, Corwin, how about you? What changed in unexpected ways because of your big job?
Well, I developed a knee problem, fairly severe knee problem, about mid-2015, so I've been doing this for just about a year. What happened was, I've been suffering knee pain before this. This is when it went acute. I was shopping an order for Instacart, and this particular order had multiple cases of liquid. I'd filled the cart, walking down the aisle, and all of a sudden, have no idea what caused it. It feels like somebody taking taking an axe to my knee. And I had to stop. I called up Instacart. I had them release me from the order, and I had to take a whole bunch of time off. I had to take myself off the schedule. I ended up needing surgery. I ended up in a homeless respite shelter for homeless people who needed longer-term medical care.
Because if we don't work, we don't make money.
Exactly,
can't pay the rent.
exactly. And so that's what happened. So here's where the knife edge again comes in. I wouldn't have been injured if they had allowed enough time in between jobs for me to rest and recover. I ended up, like I said, in a shelter. After I got out of the shelter, I didn't have any rehab. I kept working because there was nothing else to do. You know, I went through the surgery. I was in the shelter for about 3 weeks, came out, went to my friend's place, lived in a tent out in the woods for about 3 weeks. Finally found a shelter a little closer to home, but I could not earn enough money to get a down payment on an apartment or even on a room by myself, something little affordable. And this ended up with me spending about 1.5 years in the homeless shelter system in Massachusetts.
That's pretty long recovery.
It's, the recovery was okay. I mean, I was back on my feet after maybe a couple of months, physically. Financially, I'm still coming back from that. And this is, a couple of years later and cross country.
Chris, you have something that kind of has me out a little bit. What's the big changes that happened to you as part of the
Well, for me, okay, so I've been in the gig industry for about 5 years, and this is kind of a little different story. But what happened to me is that this is when I worked for Uber, and I was driving for Uber, and it was that's when they were advertising that you could rent a car through their exchange program or exchange leasing program, and basically targeting people that couldn't get financed normally, like through another company or another bank. Because I had the worst credit, and there's no way I could get approved anywhere. So when I contacted them and they told me that I was approved, I was in shock, and I was like, I want this new car. It was so exciting for me at this time. So I went in and fill out the paperwork, and they actually got me into a car, and I was actually shocked that it happened, and I was excited. Things were good, except for the fact that, I kind of felt like I was played, like I was stereotyped. And what happened was I ended up paying over $250 a week out of each week. They would take that out of my weekly earnings. So do the math. That's over $1,000 just a month. Like, that's crazy.
before you can pay any bills?
That's crazy. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, or personal life or anything. So I was obligated every week to get that to get that $250 to them, or else I was risking losing my car. Well, my friend ended up in the hospital, unfortunately, from a major heart attack, and I'm sorry, I wasn't going to go to work. I had more important things to do than think about making that payment. About 2 weeks behind, my car was repoed. They came and repoed my car. That's the most biggest thing that stands out for me, because I felt like it was completely wrong what they did, and there was no chance of knowing how to try to get this back, get back on track. There was no opportunity. So that was it.
So it sounds like, now you had mentioned something earlier about base fare had changed during that time?
That's correct, yes. So after I had signed these documents, after leasing this vehicle, a week later, Uber decides to drop its rates. And they dropped them considerably to where Uber drivers were complaining at this time. Well, I've already signed this, I've already committed to this document, and then now this happens.
Based on a certain income.
And this document, and this document, they didn't mind dropping, a few dollars off the weekly, rent or lease that I had agreed to. No, they stayed the same.
So
And I asked them, and there was nothing.
a higher percentage of your income is not going towards that rent too. We know that one of the things that companies are always saying is that workers don't really rely on their income from these apps. That they're just using this as a side gig. And that clearly isn't true for most of you, me also. But for those of you who do this as a side gig, what issues are you seeing, and why are you involved in this fight?
Well, one of the issues that I'm seeing now is that these companies are asking us to be reliable. So we take those shifts, but then once we're on shift, there's no work. You can see stories across the board about how your shifts are for 4 hours, you're sitting here, you're waiting, but you could have worked some other gig or another job. Instead, you've chosen to work for whichever company you decided to. But you don't get an hourly guarantee on top of that. So
You're picking your schedules as kind of a crapshoot,
yes, so you're sitting at home for 2 hours.
not able to.
Or sitting in your car in some parking lot.
Yes,
Because
2
you don't
hours.
live near where the order is being generated.
Or a hotspot that's saturated by a bunch of drivers that then you don't get a ping because all the other people are sitting there.
So no guarantees in this,
Not
yes,
anymore.
which may not be that big of a deal. Okay, yeah, don't guarantee the work, but they're holding you up from getting other work.
yes.
So
You
I think
expect
that's the
us
issue
to
there.
be reliable, but right now, we cannot rely on you. So how is that fair? And I understand, it's all a question of whether or not we're gonna get a customer, but still, then let me go.
Right.
If I could go work somewhere else, let me go somewhere else then.
Thanks. Roy, you're also doing this as a side gig. What issues are you seeing? Why are you involved in the fight?
So even though this is a side gig, so I am like part of the Facebook forums for Amazon Flex, like specifically Uber and Lyft also. But I've heard like horror stories. I've actually seen people who post, and they give good advice on these like forums, like like how to fish for work schedules and things like that. But then I've seen, so like these people, they have experience. They have like 2 years they've been doing this. They've never been late on their deliveries and things like that. But all it takes is about maybe like 2 errors, and then boom, pretty much they'll get like a warning email, and then like pretty much beyond that, just a dismissal email. And I'll give like some of the examples that sometimes it's most of the time it's like not really their fault, because if you think about it, have we seen like I-5 traffic jams? Seattle, it's horrendous. I mean, you get stuck pretty much, and so when you don't deliver on time, you get dinged pretty much. Then another good example is that so Amazon Flex, we do packages also, and trust me, they've like given us like information, and we've tried our best to make sure we hide. I mean, if you're talking about geocaching, like Amazon Flex, some of the delivery people, they're like geocachers. They will hide your package for you But there's only so much you can do because like thief, package theft is just like so prevalent these days, and because the package gets stolen, you get dinged. So
As if you didn't put it in a good
Yeah.
place.
yeah.
Can I add something else too? These companies that we work for, when they first started out, were so expensive. But now they have grown. In fact, they've grown to billion-dollar companies. Not just million-dollar companies, but billion-dollar companies, and all because of gig workers. So it is time for good standards to be set. You're young enough of a company in an industry that just seemed to come over overnight. If you set these standards now, that helps out people. These will be loyal people to you. Not only will we be a loyal an employee to you, but will be loyal customers to you. I use Instacart myself. I send food to my parents in Arizona. So help a girl out. That's what I'm trying to say.
And we're constantly referring, and customers always ask me, how do they treat you?
Yes.
Well, who's the best? And believe me, I honestly answer them to all those questions. And as a customer yourself, I ask those kinds of questions. So,
How they treat us
it
matters.
would behoove these companies to
How they treat us matters
treat
a
their
lot.
representatives properly. Yeah.
It becomes hard to it actually becomes hard to like refer people, when
You're right.
when this happens, but. Yeah.
I work for a delivery app, always been good to me, got my money on time, got bonuses on time. I referred a friend, he was working great, everything's working great. A couple weeks later, he refers somebody else. He was supposed to earn his referral bonus after that person had done one delivery. The person's done many deliveries. And it's still, from that time, it's been 2 weeks, constant email and phone calls back and forth, and he still hasn't seen his money. So now, I don't refer that. I don't refer that app to anybody until I hear that they've done right by it. So
There is enough money, obviously, in your own coffers to take care of your gig workers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about pennies to your millions.
when I think of the percentage, okay, that they've grown, I understand that in a way you have to like pay back starting costs. But
Yes.
beyond that, profits beyond that, we should get a percentage of those profits as they grow. We should get that percent more say on our base pay or whatnot, because we've grown the company.
Not to
Or
mention,
even a retirement, that's something.
not to mention the fact
That's
that
what we're talking about.
we are their faces.
That's true.
We are their faces.
Do you want us to have gloomy faces to the customers?
Exactly.
Okay, let's go on to the next question. You guys have been holding meetings, and we've all been holding meetings and talking to each other and work in Washington about what needs to change for a few months. What have you decided to advocate for? What do you think needs to be changed to make the gig economy work for workers? Chris?
I chose something that was very powerful and hit home with me. And so we came up with a 5-star pay policy thing that we want every single one of these gig apps to be responsive to imply, yeah. So basically what these 5 stars are, okay, so we got the 5-star pay policies. So pay for all of our work, okay? So when we say all of our work, we're talking about from the minute we get ordered to go somewhere, okay, whether we're picking up a customer, whether we're going to a restaurant, that mileage is not paid for. So currently, yes. So therefore you have 10 miles you might have to go to this restaurant to pick up, this order. Well, guess what? That's on you. That doesn't seem right to me. If they're going to order me to go somewhere, then they need to pay from the minute they tell us to go somewhere.
Number 2?
So that's number 1. Number 2, $15 after expenses, and that means like $15 after gas and after all the maintenance and everything like that you put into this business, the taxes, things like that.
So 15 minimum net, not gross.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And the next one would be itemized breakdown of pay. And this is a big problem with many of the apps. Not all of them, but some of them. Mine in particular. There's no itemized breakdown about how you're being paid or who you're being paid, from as far as the customer's tip. It's just all confusing, and it has a lot of people, questioning if it's even correct. So that's very, very important also. The no tip theft is also kind of goes back into that one. There's a lot of people out there that are not seeing their pay, the pay broken down, so they're just assuming
Don't know if the tips passed.
if it's even where the money's going. So that's a huge thing that could be happening right now, but we just don't know. It's in question. So we need to see itemized breakdowns, period. And the next one is timely pay. There's many, people that don't get paid on time. You're working a W-2 job and you have, you every 2 weeks you get or every week or whatever not, you get that payment on the time that they say they're going to give it to you. Not now. People are spending time. There's delays happening, or there's promises that they make that they'll get this money to you, and then it doesn't happen as far as the referral type of thing, and then you got to email back and forth because they can't answer the phone live to somebody. It just becomes a hassle. So you should be paid on time. So those are our 5 paid star policies.
Okay, well, Mia, let me ask you, what would those 5-star pay policies mean for you?
That the bills get paid, that I'm okay to pay the cable bill, the phone bill, the rent on time. So that there's that peace of mind for myself, because my rent is due by the 1st, not on the 5th, but on the 1st. And if I'm supposed to expect my paycheck on the 31st, there better be that paycheck. So.
Roy, how about you?
Yeah, for me, the 5-star pay policy, I think that would enable us to give significant feedback on the companies, basically saying that, hey, if you're gonna rate us, hey, how about we rate you also?
I think that's a great job. Everybody's rated all around. Customers rate us, we rate customers.
Correct.
The company should be rated too.
Correct.
And I speak to a lot of people wanting to go into gig work. This would be something that would be easy for them to look up, find out what the best companies are too.
Yeah.
Chris, how about you? What does this 5-star pay policy mean to you?
Well, kind of like what you did, what Roy just said. It's about time that us gig workers get together and we get to rate these companies. That just hits home with me, because it's people are getting deactivated, wrongly, and it's there's not really these numbers out there for these companies. So I think it would be this 5-star pay policies is really hits home with me when it comes to that. So I'm just excited to see them get rated and see what the outcome is.
See if it actually changes their behavior, the way they expect their rating our behavior to change our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we get it out there, that there is ratings, that a lot of customers are interested in that too.
Mm-hmm. And then also, okay. Remind.
You were going to say something about that cost to get on the road and whatnot.
Oh, let's see. Okay, so something that they promise you. Okay, so this is well, they don't promise you, but there's this. There's a lot of misleading information when you, let's say, for example, don't know about these companies and you want to start working for them. You'll log on to these sites, and you'll see you'll see these advertisements that they say come work for us, blah blah blah. Well, there's this one specific advertisement that they said, okay, come make up to $25 minimum. Plus tips, and they throw this big number out there. And it's totally, once you join, sometimes that seems accurate, and then all of a sudden it's just not correct anymore. It's not that. It's not what. It's very misleading.
It's called bait and switch.
Thank you. I like that. So basically, reel me in, and then okay. Now that I got you in, and now that we've given you all these, we've made it to where you make $25 an hour, and then tell all your friends to come join. And then all of a sudden, after that happens, it starts to just decrease. So it's a big issue because it's just misleading. In one of the ads that I've seen, it said you could do this for a living. It tells you that, or you could just do it as a side gig. Well, I quit my day job because it said that specific sentence. You can do this for a living. And I was thinking $25 an hour. Heck yeah!
So you took the leap.
I took the leap. I quit my job, and I shouldn't have. but I did.
Thanks. Okay, another one of the important changes that we're advocating for is portable benefits. Portable benefits are a way for gig workers to be able to get benefits like health benefits and you know, workers' comp, unemployment, vacation day, personal days, that type of thing. And there is actually legislation in the state legislature right now about that. There's a couple things. One is that there's a clause or something in there saying that they aren't going to, it's not going to affect the liability for status, like the whole point of whether they're W-2 or 1099. You know, it's sort of, okay, we'll not count that if you want to pay into this portable benefits. And really all it is a company, for example, Lyft, would pay a certain amount to my account and third-party administrator who administrates the benefits, and then I would choose what I'm going to use those benefits for. I'd either maybe get personal days, or maybe I want to bump up my health policy to a better one, or whatever, kind of cafeteria-style benefits. But it's there's someone in between these companies and us, which allows them to not have to deal with that status. But also, it allows us to be able to get benefits, the benefits that we need.
Absolutely.
And we do need them. And just like every other worker in the state who has unemployment insurance and workers' comp and whatnot, you know, we deserve that too. The difference is it's not been determined yet how, like, say how much they would do. Maybe it would be, you know, if you had a $10 fare, they'd give 5% of that, or if you had a delivery, they'd do 50 cents per delivery, or maybe based on the number of hours you're logged in.
Or they can charge the
that'll
customer,
come-
or they
that
can
will
charge
all
the
come out.
customer's fee too. You
That'll
know, they have
come
all the other fees with the customers, they could even do that. You know, there could be a separate fee for that.
But the end result is that they would send in some money to this third-party benefit, just like every other employer sends to L&I or unemployment insurance, all that. They've all been doing this. This is nothing new. It's just including them in that. To speak a little bit more about this and just really more extensively about the issue, I'd like to go to Carla.
Sure. Yeah. So last fall we published a paper on how state and local policymakers can raise standards for workers. State and local governments have a lot of power to ensure that independent contractors are able to access the full array of benefits and protections they need to support their families. There's been a lot of debate around this bill and around whether or not gig workers are truly independent contractors. So just a quick word on misclassification. There are gig workers who are saying that they should truly be classified as an employee and receive the legal protections that status entails. Our stance is that workers should have the freedom to pursue those legal claims if they're improperly classified. However, benefits need not necessarily count towards determination of that status if workers are being provided benefits through a portable benefits fund that includes this sort of assistance in terms of worker voice and worker power. But workers should have the freedom to pursue this. And unfortunately, states are too often stifling the workers' ability to launch these suits, which is a step in a wrong direction. But, misclassification lawsuits aren't the entire answer. There's an opportunity here to think through how do we help those properly classified independent contractors that are not receiving sufficient pay or benefits to support their families. Moreover, by raising these standards for independent contractors, policymakers can reduce the incentive for low-road companies to misclassify their workers in the first place. So keeping that in mind, we recommended 3 things in our report. First, that cities and states should create a wage threshold for all gig economy workers, akin to what the workers have been talking about here today themselves. Really, this prevents these problems of gig workers being faced with poverty wages and really struggling to make ends meet. Second, cities and states can create platforms that expand programs to deliver needed benefits to independent contractors. This includes safety net programs such as workers' compensation and unemployment insurance, as well as retirement savings and health insurance. And then third and finally, cities and states should provide workers a voice on the job by creating pathways for workers, companies, and the government to negotiate for industry-specific wages and benefits needed for those workers. So you guys mentioned the proposal that Representative Stonier in the Washington State Legislature has introduced that would require companies to make contributions to workers into a portable benefit funds. The concept is important, both because it provides these meaningful benefits to workers, but also because it takes into account how do we include worker voice and what workers need in the program. So the accounts are administered by these independent providers where half of the board of directors would be comprised of workers, and it provides workers with the ability it requires that these companies, these providers solicit input from workers. You know, there's also some really exciting proposals that are being debated in the city and in across the country in terms of how do we give workers a stronger voice on the job and raise worker pay. So Seattle is debating a domestic worker bill of rights. You know, domestic workers are not gig workers per se, but they've long been living in this sort of legal gray status where their rights aren't being respected. So this domestic worker bill of rights would not only uphold higher standards for gig work or domestic workers, but it would establish a commission made up of workers and employers to monitor fair wages and benefits and working conditions for domestic workers. And then finally, in terms of raising worker pay, the New York City Taxi Commission recently released a report that recommends that TNC drivers be covered under minimum pay protections. And the report calls for a minimum wage for TNC drivers of $17.22 per hour, which is notable. In addition, there are innovative state and local governments that have crafted policies to uphold higher standards that are in place already. So, for example, New York City enacted the Freelance Isn't Free Act to impose penalties on companies that fail to pay their contractors, you know, akin to the problem that you guys have been discussing in terms of late pay. And in order to protect contractors injured on the job, the New York State has established 20 years ago a black car fund, which provides workers' compensation to drivers. And just recently, the state has also established paid leave benefits that cover independent contractors when they have caregiving responsibilities or themselves need to take time off to recover. Also, several states have adopted laws that require companies to pay into a workers' compensation system for independent contractors in a limited number of job categories. And like I was mentioning previously, states have enacted these domestic workers' bills of rights to provide basic labor protections to caregiving workers who are carved out of receiving protection under federal workplace laws. You know, all in all, like what we're talking about now really is about whether or not gig jobs become good jobs. And that's a choice. You know, when we look back to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, manufacturing work was terrible work. It was dangerous, it was dirty, and it was low paid. But it became good work, middle class work, due to a series of both policy choices and the strength of unions. So now we're looking at another emerging sector. And obviously we don't know how big the sector will become, but we're really called on at this moment to determine whether or not the jobs will be good ones.
Thank you, Carla. Next question is, what would unemployment insurance and workers' comp mean for you? Let's start with you, man.
Well, unemployment and workers' comp are a bit of protection that every worker in Washington State enjoys. Everybody except for us. That would mean that if I get deactivated at any sort of time for any sort of reason, I can't just go to unemployment and get that protection that we all technically will pay into if we were regular workers or W-2 workers. And on top of that, if I were injured on the job, which I did once before, the good thing is I have that umbrella of protection because my husband has health insurance. Regular other workers, they may not have that. So I can't go to LNI and be taken care of like we should all be taken care of. So
Until you get back on your feet.
yeah.
Cohen, how about you? I know you've had
Well,
things
I maintain that the injury would not have happened if they had been taking care of us all along in terms of time off, paying us enough that we can afford to take time off. But everything that happened after the injury was going to happen at some point. I think working for them, doing the kind of activity that the job involved, speeded that process up a little bit. But the fallout from that, from being injured and having to not work for a certain amount of time, and ending up homeless would not have happened had there been benefits in place.
If you got that
Because because I would have had workers' comp to deal with the injury, I would have had insurance to deal with the treatment of the injury, I would have had unemployment insurance to deal with supporting my life during that time.
Okay.
And the failure of those three ended up with me on the street. And I had to be in a shelter because I have other medical issues that mean I cannot sleep outdoors.
So it sounds like you might not have been homeless, but you just had workers.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. If I had some kind of portable financial support during the time when I was recovering from the injury that I sustained, working my heart out for these people, I would not have been homeless.
What would getting access to health care and retirement mean for you, Rafael?
Well, thank you. In my point of view, the most important benefit for a worker, for drivers, and gig companies is these two things: healthcare or insurance and retirement. It's very important because most of the companies we know around the shadow and around the US, they provide the insurance and healthcare for their employees and for their workers. And it makes sense if the gig companies also provide these benefits for the workers, because it's a big company and it's encouraged others to come and join with the gig workers.
Okay.
And also like retirement. If I talk about retirement, I can say like having access to retirement is a big and basic right of every workers. Everybody has this right to have a retirement. Like if I or if anybody stop working, I need, or everybody need to have safe money. Like I said before, we can recommend and we can encourage the others, like our friends, to come and work in this company. Because even somebody work in a company, the only thing that we're looking for that is the insurance. That does it have insurance for us or not? If it provide insurance for us, the people will come and join with the gig companies. They will like trusting to work with the gig companies, and it's something right for the workers. And also, as I said, like it's good for the company, it's good for the workers. That they're gonna work full time, they're gonna work honestly, and they're gonna prolong with this company because whatever they need, the company provides for them.
Right. Or provides the means for them to get it themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. For them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, how about you? Healthcare or retirement?
Well, I'll start with healthcare. Healthcare is an important thing. With healthcare comes along, with like the injuries, things that happen that keeps us on the job. If we don't have access to that kind of stuff, if we have to, go to the hospital and rack up a huge debt because we don't have health insurance, then we're in debt for a long time, if not life. So why not give back a little bit to us? Like that's just, it's. I think it's been very important. On the retirement, I'm getting to the point in my life to where retirement is something I'm thinking about. I'm 33 years old and I'm not getting any younger, and so I literally think about almost daily about what am I going to do when I'm like that time comes, and I sit here and I don't have anything to fall back on.
Because now's the time you're supposed to be planning for that.
Before, like I feel like I'm behind actually,
Yeah.
And if these companies are going to be the companies of our future, well then why don't they set us up for our futures? That's all I can say.
My take on that, healthcare, I recently had a healthcare issue that I could have went to a chiropractor, 1 or 2 sessions, handled. But instead, Apple Health, which is what I have, I can't afford anything better. It doesn't pay for that. So there's a rigmarole, and you kind of go around and go to the primary, and refer to here, and show it's medically, this insurance company is paid way more than if they just done one or two? Okay, so if we have healthcare in the Portable Benefits Act, for instance, I would choose to have a better category of healthcare. That would be great for me. Maybe there's something else I don't need. But healthcare is important that you have a little more than the basics. As for retirement, you know, I deserve to work for both my present and my future. And I have vehicles in place for investment and retirement and whatnot, but they're woefully underfunded. I mean, barely, because I am not making the income, a living income, that I need to both handle today and put away for tomorrow.
Correct.
That's true.
I'm willing to do the work. It doesn't, you know, I don't really want a company 401k plan because someone else handles that. I want to handle my own. But darn it, I should make enough profit in my business, especially based on all the expenses that go out, that I can live decently. I'm not even saying high on hog, but live decently and put away for my future. And so that's what I think is very important about
Even if
retirement.
it's just a little bit, you know, but there's
A lot
no,
of time.
it's not there.
The numbers don't add up.
Yeah, that's correct.
The numbers don't add up
If you're really
because
crunch.
if you have X amount of dollars that you get in from any of these companies, and then you take out the car payment, the gas, the insurance, the oil
Tires.
changes, the
I've had
tires.
5 new tires in the last 2 years because
Oh
of
my
potholes.
You don't have a 4-wheel drive vehicle.
No, I do not.
And that's where the loophole lies, is these
Okay.
companies are avoiding all this.
Right.
All these major expenses that should be paid.
Which is fine. I mean, when you're 1099 in it, yeah, I'll carry those expenses, but
That's fine.
you need
Yeah.
the job needs to be bid at the correct price.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, correct, and be paid for.
Back to what we've decided to advocate for, aside from the better pay and portable benefits, which we definitely discussed, is there anything else that you want to see change? Roy?
Yeah, so kind of what I mentioned earlier with regards to like how easily us as independent contractors we get dismissed. To elaborate a little bit more, in general, it almost feels like these gig apps or like these companies, they deal almost like one-to-one rather than all of us as a group. Like there's no actual negotiation. It feels a little impersonal. I mean, you just get an email saying, okay, you're no longer on the app, bye-bye. And so with that said, I think it would be nice to have like a worker's voice of sorts, so at least there'll be some proper channels for arbitration of saying, okay, hey, you're trying to dismiss me, but have you heard my side of the story, or what the circumstances of what actually happened?
Yeah, that's part of what
Yep.
we're trying to build right now.
Yep.
Anybody else want to chime in on other things?
There's actually, if you take a look, there's an influx of workers coming into the gig industry. And in fact, every time I look on the Facebook Instacart site, there's always a, hi, I'm a new member. So, which is
Right.
fabulous. Welcome, by all means, come join us. We're having fun. But because that there are so many more of us, it seems that it's becoming, we're not going to have a voice unless we, I want to say, speak up a little bit more. I know that people don't join things like this because they're so afraid of being deactivated,
Yeah.
They don't have anything else to go back on. Roy, you have your regular job too, but some people don't. So,
I basically took a second app because fluctuations in business with Lyft,
right?
and I'm like, I need a more skill than that to make sure my bills are paid.
Yes.
And so, but it goes beyond that because you can be deactivated, you got nothing. So good to have a second one that you could do while you're looking for something else. And it pains me to see people have to think that way and not be able to say, hey, no, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm going full board. This is my thing.
And there's a ton of people out there, you guys, that are going through what we're going through, like you said, that aren't able to come to the table and say it. I know it because I've spoken to many of them, and I've networked with many of them, and that's why we're all here to be able to be that voice for those people. So that's really good.
Welcome them when they come.
That's a really cool thing. So I hope this can be a big movement. will be.
There's also something about, yes, there's flexibility to spend time with your family. There's an infinite way that you can, mingle your schedule so that you have the time free that you want to spend with who you want. But I think the people that get forgotten sometimes are the singletons.
Yeah.
The people who don't have a family.
Like Mia mentioned, she has someone to fall back on,
Right,
but
I don't.
we have to provide that freedom for ourselves.
I'm an only kid. I have no siblings to fall back on. My parents are both dead. Sure, I'm of an age where that is the case for a lot of us, but that doesn't mean that it reduces the value of my existence in society or the value of the work that I provide.
Right.
Correct. Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and take some questions from the audience now. We've got some great questions. The first one will be for Carla. Carla is ready. There's interest among volunteers in building power among different types of tech workers. What first steps can white-collar workers take, or what do you think has to exist in organizing to enable this to happen?
Sure. Well, I think that increasingly what we see is that workplaces are becoming fractured. So tech workers who are working at the companies that are designing the platforms may not actually know or identify with the same workers who are then using those platforms in order to execute whatever good that the company they're working for is providing. So I think first of all, like understanding that you are part of the same ecosystem and that the work of gig workers and the work of tech workers is intrinsically connected is powerful and important, and seems like the person who asked the question is really like already on the right path. But then secondly, I think that there's both really good legislation and then not so good legislation that is moving very rapidly in a lot of states. So in terms of the good bucket, we've got the Washington state legislation that's seeking to provide benefits to workers in a way that's really meaningful and really like uplifting those workers. There's also the Seattle Domestic Workers Bill of Rights that's advancing, that's going to give workers some real power on the job. Those aren't tech workers, but I think that there's some important lessons for tech, how we support gig workers. Sorry, they're not gig workers, but there's lessons for how we could support gig workers in that as well. So being an advocate there is very powerful. At the same time, there's other states where not such good work is happening, where gig workers are being prevented from exercising their right to pursue claims of misclassification. And being a voice in those forums as well, I think would be extremely powerful and starts to unify the conversation. So it's not just about one set of workers versus another set of workers, but it's all workers advocating together.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next question is, do you find the gig work to be more physically demanding or stressful than you anticipated, or than is commonly understood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Specifically with Instacart. Because the way they assign batches is completely automated. There's no way to tell what's in the order before you accept it, at which point you're stuck to it. There's no way to tell, for example, that order that my knee died on was going to be so harsh until I accepted the batch and walked in and looked at the list and said, oh, there's 10 cases of water. And she lives on the 3rd floor.
Yes, that's it.
And there's no elevator.
The stairs.
Okay, here's a case. Here's one case, and then I will shut up about this. I had a delivery to somebody of 4 50-pound bags of dog food to a 3rd floor with no elevator.
That's why she wanted it delivered.
Oh, ouch.
I almost had a heart attack.
I believe it.
And addendum to that, one of my first batches with Shipt was something similar. It wasn't all that harsh, but there was no parking near the building. And somehow this 3rd floor apartment, there was 5 flights of stairs between the 1st floor and the 3rd floor, because of the way the architecture was. I managed to get everything up to the top of the stair, put it in front of her door, knocked on it, walked over, sat down on the top step because I had to, because I didn't sit, I was gonna fall. I I don't know what star rating she gave me, but I got reprimanded and said this person had a bad experience from this delivery. I'm really sorry you had a bad experience watching somebody not have a heart attack. I'm really sorry for that.
Often they do will rate on, the negatives and the
Yes.
positives.
Yeah, that is human nature.
And just that whole thing about Instacart, that automation of their batch assignment process needs to not be automated. None of these things need to be automated because stuff like that sneaks through no matter what. And it is, I am not exaggerating, it is deadly.
I had a really good point to make, which is, can you reread that question?
So, do you find the gig work to be more physically demanding or stressful than you anticipated, or that it is commonly understood?
Well, this is the thing, when you say commonly misunderstood, I don't think it's very understood from the customer's aspect. So I think that they don't necessarily know what we go through. And this is why that's such a good question, is because I think that this is our chance to actually talk to the customers and let you guys know that it's not an easy job. Yep.
So you have, okay, like truckers do, you're sitting for long hours. Okay, so you have that aspect. If you're a driver.
Yep.
You're a delivery driver, you have stairs, walking extra long to get to the place because of parking, and all that. And there's no, I haven't heard of any of them that automatically give a fee for stairs, like what floor you're on. Which they really should.
Or a weight consideration.
Weight, exactly. And also the stress part of it is due to the instability, all that kind of stuff.
Customer support.
Yeah.
The customer support.
Right, communication, that can be difficult.
Also, I am not a restaurant supply store.
Yeah.
Okay. I only have a car. I don't have a flatbed truck or a van. I just have a fucking IKEA bags that I carry your stuff in. I'm sorry, but 25 boxes or reams of boxes of paper should not go into my car. Yes, and then on top of that, I should not have to make 4 or 5 trips to and from Costco just to fill your order. And then when I bring it to your restaurant, don't get tipped. I understand, hey, I chosen this job, but I don't get all that much already. So I've already made that 3 or 4 trips to get your stuff. And then on top of that, yesterday was a prime example. I had an order. I see this job as a workout every single day now. You know what I mean? I don't have to go to the gym because of the amount that I'm lifting. And I'm already fighting with my husband, who is saying, no, honey, I don't think you should do this because you've already worked so much. He wants me to take a rest, but I'm trying to contribute to our family.
So you're having, you know what I mean? Having
yes,
family stresses.
Absolutely. And so, but then when I take a photograph and I'm just trying to share this information with, like, say, another worker, he sees that photograph and he's like, really, this is what you took? I'm like, haha, yes, honey, that's exactly what I took. But I'm fine because I lifted up with my knees and I'm okay,
But still. So we do have extra stuff all the time that isn't normally.
And that's why the customers maybe might not even necessarily even know that was the situation that you had to go through.
Also, customers can ask you questions because, like, we get a lot of questions and we'll answer them when you're talking to us. And the next question here is from State Representative Monica Stonier, who's online now, is sponsoring the portable benefits bill that we've been talking about. Yay. She's my new favorite person. The question is this: as an author of the portable benefits bill, what state worker protections would the panelists prioritize?
Unemployment.
For me, workers' comp, I think, would maybe need to go first if you have to
I
say.
think health insurance, health insurance.
Yeah, workers' comp, health insurance,
And even 401k,
Ability
I
for
think, or
unemployment.
future, say,
Yeah.
future, I think that's fun as well.
those are basic, supports
Yeah.
that we need even before we get paid time off or sick pay or any other stuff.
I think they're all very important,
Yeah.
honestly.
But if
It's
we're
really a big
prioritizing,
one, yeah.
okay,
Okay.
prioritizing, yeah, workers' comp, unemployment, unemployment
Because
insurance,
they all speak to your physical
and then
well-being.
personal time off. whether it
They,
be
they all,
vacation or
all of these things speak to a state of physical well-being that enables us to do more and better work for the company.
And to
If they
keep working.
don't,
Yeah.
and to keep working, and if they don't invest in us on this level, they cannot expect us to invest in them on the level that we have been.
That's true.
Well, they just rely on the new next person to come on.
Eventually, word of mouth will come around, and those people will. The other thing is that if they continue to treat their new hires the way they've been treating their old hires, nobody's going to want to work with them.
What will happen first, I think, is that we're going to be starting them. And so not only gig workers, but customers will move to the places that we're saying, hey, these guys are giving us a fair shake.
Mhm.
These guys are not.
Mhm.
As a customer, I totally will do that. I will vote with my feet.
Then the merchants get involved, and then the merchants will do.
Exactly, restaurants too. So that all, if we just speak out, that all moves in the right direction. Okay, our last question here. What can customers do to support workers? Well, this just happens to be one of the last questions that we had anyway. How can people get involved? Roy, you want to start with that?
Yeah, definitely. So, in general, definitely would say definitely reach out to the customers if you able to, and just let them know that we have like a working Washington, and of course talk to family members, friends, whatever, to spread the word. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a link on the chat, and voila, you get this little 5-star awesome flyer that will. If you are able to sign up and help spread the word, and you get these little flyers to send out and let other gig workers know of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish.
And you can contact Wagwag and get a bunch of these if you want to hand them to, if you're a customer wanting to hand them to gig workers who come to your door.
Yep.
Or if your gig worker wants to hand them to customers of other gig workers, we can all pass this around and
Yep.
get the word out,
Yep, let them know.
okay?
Yes.
Chris?
Remember to tip.
I was gonna mention this one, on my specific app that I work on. I think it's very important, and it's a sensitive thing, you tip what you want, but for DoorDash, you tip ahead of time. So, if you were gonna do that, I'd recommend doing it in cash to make DoorDash put a little bit more out of their pocket. That's what I would recommend, because DoorDash is covering up the tips to basically his little wages from themselves, so.
Yeah, there's certain apps that, Lyft, you can tip on the app, but it's very transparent to us.
Yeah, that's.
It's the delivery services that it tends to be a little questionable about how tips are applied. So we've discussed a lot of things, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what we would like to see going forward. We would definitely like to ask any other gig workers, customers, supporters, to get the word out. Go ahead and share the video to more people. The more people know about this and that it is the issue, the better. When the Portable Bill Act comes around, it's getting close to being heard in the legislature and all that. If you're signed up with WAGWA, with workers, watch it. You know what I mean? Then we can get the word out to you, so you can be calling your senators or representatives. We can put some pressure on the companies too, saying this is what we expect. The more that you say, this is what we expect that you should do, the more likely they're going to end up doing it.
Pressure is a fair tactic. They're pressuring us.
Yeah,
We should pressure
pressure.
them.
Stars, remember.
For basically
Yeah, really.
sorry.
Yep, that too.
And the other thing is, we just need to really remember that we are at the beginning of a whole new industry, a whole new way of doing things. And, if you think back, Industrial Revolution, okay, well, if they had been able to push for the 40-hour work week then and some worker safety standards and all that. Think of how much pain and suffering that there would not have been. It's the same thing. And every time we switch paradigms, there's going to be exploitation. And it's just a matter of catching it early, saying what our expectations are, placing policies and procedures in place now so that it's better for everyone.
And it all starts now.
Yes. With you. Thank you very much. This is a wonderful panel. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you to everyone who watched.